Hi, this is Karin from the Huntley Area Public Library. I'm the young adult librarian, but something you might not know about me is that I am also a beekeeper. I keep backyard bees as a hobby. So today I received 2 new packages of bees, which I'm going to show you how to install in their hives in my backyard. Alright, I finished installing one hive, and that took a little while, and there's no one else here to film it, so I'm not sure how much we'll get of the second hive, but I'll try and go through the process that I went through. I was still kind of deciding how I wanted to put everything together. So here's the second hive. Let me switch this around. So if you've never seen bees arrive in packages before, this can be the sort of shipping container that they come in. Our bee club orders about 300 of these containers, and I have 2 packages here. So what you get in a package is 3 pounds of bees plus a queen in each one. So each one of those units has a queen and about 3 pounds of bees in it. I'm going to separate those and then install a package and a queen in each of the 2 hives that I have. So to separate the 2 packages that I've got here, I'm just going to use my hive tool to pry off these wooden pieces on the end. This is my hive tool here, so you can kind of brace it and push and pull until those come off. Hopefully not disturbing this part here because I don't want to release all of the bees en masse into my garage. It is nice to be able to do this in my garage and have kind of a staging area as opposed to just doing it out in the open in the apiary where they're actually going to be. So I get to stay out of the weather until I'm actually ready to install the bees outside. Okay, so we're almost ready to go here to get these guys in the hives. I also had to take off these coverings that were covering the can of sugar syrup that was in each of these. They're marked with an I, which I think indicates that they're supposed to be Italian queens that are in there. Italian honeybees are supposed to be sort of mild-mannered, not too aggressive, and they are very industrious and make lots of honey. So hopefully that holds true and we have nice friendly bees who don't attack us this summer. To get them out, I've taken a few bee classes, and previous instructors have told us that you should spray down these containers. You can see on the side here that there's kind of a screen, and the bees are all clustered up together around the queen to keep warm and to keep her warm. And then there's this can of sugar syrup that hangs down, and that is what they eat while they're being transported from their previous destination, Georgia in this case, to here in Illinois. So what I'm going to do to release them, instead of spraying them down, since it's only about 39 degrees out right now, and I really don't want them to get wet and chilled, I am going to do a real slow release. So I'm going to lift up this can that's in here and remove it, and then I'm going to place, well, first I'm going to place this entire container inside of one of my hive bodies, and then I'm going to take that jar of sugar syrup out and release find the queen in her queen cage that's in there, and then hang her up, and then release some of these other guys. If it were warmer out and I wanted to do this a little bit more quickly, I could shake this whole container, turn it upside down, and shake the bees out into the hive body, but I'm gonna not disturb them too much today and let them take it slow, just because the weather is so cold and it's probably very stressful for them. These are what the hive bodies look like. I use a system where I have all medium deep hive bodies, so these serve as both the nesting area for the bees and also the honey stores. So all of my boxes are the same size. They're a little bit lighter to lift than the deep boxes, which is important for me because I don't really want to be lifting hundreds of pounds of bee materials. I'm not that strong, so when they fill one of these full of honey, that can weigh about 70 pounds, so that's still quite heavy for lifting. So what I'm going to do is put the bee package in between in this space here, and I've got some empty frames in here that my bees have used before, and also on the side here I added a frame that's already got some honey in it. I had a hive that didn't make it over the winter, so there was some honey left over from that hive, and since they didn't appear to have any diseases or anything when I inspected the hive, I'm going to reuse it on this hive and let these bees make some good use of it. So you'll notice that the frames look a little bit dirty, but that's okay. The bees are really fastidious and they will take care of all of the cleanup for me. So if your frames are not spick and span and brand spanking new, you don't really have to worry about that because your newbies will be very busy cleaning them out for you, and they do a much better job than you will. Alright, I finished installing one hive, and that took a little while, and there's no one else here to film it, so I'm not sure how much we'll get of the second hive, but I'll try and go through the process that I went through. I was still kind of deciding how I wanted to put everything together. So here's the second hive. Let me switch this around. Okay, here's hive number 2, and I've got, you can see 2 of the hive bodies there. The lower one is where I have the package of bees right now, and I still have to take out that sugar syrup can and remove the queen cage. The queen cage is actually what's attached to this little plastic tab right here. I'm not real thrilled about how that's working. In the past it's been like a metal tab and a slot in the wood and you can just slide it out. This is actually attached to the box, so I'm going to have to cut it out of there to get it out easily. And then you're going to have to when you get it out of the actual package, you have to reach your hand down in there and get covered with crawling bees, which might make some people squeamish. I'm pretty used to it. I'm going to put a glove on to do that because the last hive was a little bit angry with me for getting all up in their business, so they must be attached to their queens already, which is a good thing. You want your bees to love their queens, but you do not want to put your tender flesh in the way of that protection. So I'll show you real quick what the first hive looks like. They are all locked up and safe for the night. I just left that package on the bottom there with the can out so that the bees can crawl out, and I set the queen cage on top of it. One thing that you have to do, the queen cage is actually blocked by a little piece of cork, and so you need to remove that cork so that the queen has a easier chance of getting out of the hive. This is some of my equipment around the second hive that I'm getting ready to hive here. So I've got you can see a few of those mini marshmallows right there, and that's going to be what I use to close up that hole so that she just has a little bit of time to get adjusted, and the bees, if they aren't bonded to her yet, will have time to get used to her smell, and hopefully everybody lives happily ever after together. And then the bees can just chew their way through that marshmallow. It's harder to get for them to chew their way through the cork, so the marshmallow will be a faster release for her. I'm using this little push pin here to grab the cork and pull that out of the queen cage when I have it. I'll try and show you the queen cage. We'll see how that goes. And then I have some scissors to cut the queen cage out of the actual package there. And this stick was what I used to lift it out last time when it was still attached. So hopefully I won't have to use that. I'll just be able to use the scissors and pull it out without sticking my hand down in the mass of bees. On the front of the hive, you'll notice that I have this little metal screen right here. That's a hive entrance reducer. That will hopefully keep our bees in the hive long enough for them to think, okay, this is home. I don't need to abscond or run off anywhere, fly off anywhere. It will also keep things like mice out of the hive and other sort of larger things that might want to get in there. So that's just for protection right now. Once they are established and the weather's a little bit warmer, I will take those off and the bees will have that whole entrance area open for them. Some of the hive boxes also have these holes drilled in them too, so you can have other entrances for the bees, and that's really handy for your foragers who are out bringing back nectar and pollen. They can come back and enter in through that entrance instead of having to go up through the bottom of the hive and travel a further distance. Okay, so I took the can out, and here's what we have going on in the hive right now. The bees are starting to explore and get out of their shipping container. And there they are, 3 pounds of bees. And that's the queen cage right there that all the bees are sort of congregating on. There are a few worker bees that are in there with the queen already, and their job is to kind of protect her, and then the ones on the outside will bring some of that sugar syrup to her so that she gets fed and taken care of while she's trapped in that box. Okay, and now I'm going to use my scissors and release that box and take her away for just a minute so I can start the process of getting her released. So I'm going to pause while I do that. Okay, here's our queen in the queen cage. You can see that she looks a little bit different from the worker bees. She's a little bit longer. Her abdomen is not as stripy. And she's still got a few of those little worker bees in there with her. And I already replaced the cork on the top there with some marshmallow. So I'm going to put her in the hive before she gets too cold. And then we should be ready to close things up. Okay, here we are back at hive number 2, and we're about to close everything up. I've got the queen cage out, and she's got her marshmallow in there, and the bees are starting to come out and explore the hive here, so everything is looking pretty good. They are not nearly as upset as some of the hives I have put together, probably because they didn't get shaken out of their carrying box. That probably helped a lot. Okay, so the first thing I am going to do is put on what's called the inner cover, and that is, it looks like this. And this just, whoops, will keep the bees insulated here. So that's on, and it's got this little hole in the middle here, which is great for if you want to add some sugar syrup, which I'm going to do. They have a few frames of honey in there, and then they're going to have the sugar syrup too. So they should have plenty to eat if they're not finding anything outside of their hive just yet. They do have some kind of new frames in there, frames that I've cleaned out, so they're going to have to do some wax building too. So they might not have anywhere to store things for a little while they're getting situated, but the workers should get started making wax soon, and then they'll fill out those frames and start filling them with eggs and honey and nectar and all kinds of good stuff. So here we are ready for our sugar syrup. And I just took the syrup that they had traveled with and I poured it into this other container. I like to put a few more holes in my lids and just reuse like a plastic yogurt container or takeout container. So I'll turn that upside down, and it's balanced on a couple of rocks there so that they have some space to get underneath and get some of the syrup out. They all have long tongues, so the workers should be able to do that pretty easily. Plus it drips a little bit too. So they'll collect that and store it or use it right away as they need to. The next thing I'm going to put on is an empty hive box, which is going to cover up this syrup so that nothing can knock it over. We do have raccoons and skunks and things which like to hang out in the area, so they might get into a hive if you're not too careful. So that's what that's going to look like. And then on the top of this, I want to add some towels on the inside here. I'm going to add some towels for extra insulation. What I would like to do is make a dedicated quilt box at some point. I haven't had a chance to do that, so what I'm going to do is just going to add some towels in there, and I'll be right back to get those. I put the towels in, and this will help if there's any condensation in the hive. They'll kind of collect the moisture and hopefully keep it from dripping down on the bees. The bees like to keep it pretty warm in there to keep their body temperatures up, and if they have any brood that they're like eggs and larvae in there that they're trying to keep warm, they have to cluster around that too. So they don't right now have any brood, but they will soon, hopefully. So this will hopefully help with that until temperatures outside warm up, and then I can take all of this off, and eventually I won't have to be feeding them any of the syrup either. They'll be bringing in enough food on their own. Okay, so the next layer here, I got these screened inner covers, which normally you would just use alone. You wouldn't use that other cover that I have down here. And these are for summer when it's hotter out, but they also provide some ventilation. So I'm going to use it like I would have for a quilt box, which has holes and screening in it to add airflow to your hive without losing a lot of the heat that's inside. So this is my next layer, and it looks like there's a bee on the outside here. You might want to go inside. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to put on is this outer cover, which goes on the top, the top here. Pardon my moving the camera everywhere. So that's the outer cover, and that just seals everything up. And I also always put a brick or a rock on top of that, just to keep things steady. You can get some high winds here, or like I said, sometimes larger animals will try and get into your hive, and they can make a big mess. So I'm going to get the rock and put that on top. Okay, we got our rock on. We got our second hive hived. Yay bees. It's hive number 2, and here we have hive number 1. Whew! Thanks for sticking with me while I installed the bees. It took a couple of hours with the filming and getting everything organized, but the bees are all safe and sound in their hives. Shortly after I finished, the sun came out too, and it's warming up and the snow's melting, so I think they're really going to enjoy living here now. I hope you enjoyed watching the process, and if you're interested in learning more about beekeeping, we have lots of resources at the library that we can help you find. For more fun videos and other information, you can check out our website, www.huntleylibrary.org. Thanks for watching. Bye.